Hey everybody, and welcome to the full game analysis of the European Club Final between Clapham and Ranelagh. This was played in 2022. It's the first time that Ranelagh has been in the final, and it ends up as being a universe point thriller. Now, before we get stuck into it, if you'd like to watch this video without any adverts, then you can join our Patreon and check it out there. You'll also get access to our Discord, where you'll find many like-minded players who have been following all the Hive Ultimate videos and watching the development of Ultimate over the last few years. There's always plenty of interesting stuff to chat about, whether it's videos that are coming out, whether it's live Ultimate that's being broadcast. It's a really nice community to be a part of. Coming into 2023, we're in the off-season now. If you want your team to level up and everyone to get on the same page with this Hive stuff, then you can pay a little bit more to get access to the training videos where we'll teach you how to introduce drills, which will get your team all moving the disc really quickly, following their throws, hitting all those open passes and dribbling, and just having a great time playing Ultimate. You get a free disc on the training tier after 2 months, so after that time, if you don't like it, you can just cancel it, and you're not really out of pocket, you just bought a disc. It'd be a pleasure to welcome you on board for 2023, so please consider joining us. The link is in the description for your convenience, and without any further ado, onto the video. In the first point of the game, Clapham use a tactic which we've seen before, where they send players down to mark the pool fielders rather than matching up directly across. We know they're doing this because you can compare the lines and see that there's lots of crossovers. It'd be too risky to plan these matchups in the first point. So they're definitely sending Swan Thompson and Eels down to mark that first pass out. Hillman poaches into the lane as well, and then a big space opens up on the near sideline. Rogers fakes and attacks this space. There's a nice leading pass which puts him in power position. He fakes and hits the poached player, who then lays it off, and again there's a fake and hitting the poached player. This time bounces off the hands. So let's take a closer look at what happened there. When Rogers runs the give-go up the sideline, Rag poaches off to see if he can get a bid in there. McNamara is free. After this fake, McNamara stops, and the pass goes directly to him. There's a little poach coming in, but it doesn't get there in time. McNamara then continues to flow the disc over to the far side, and Rag, you can see, poaches off again. There's the fake, and that's when McNamara stops. He starts to come back, but the throw is actually leading him slightly in a different direction, which makes the catch much harder. The problem with this is timing. So although he's poached off, he's not signifying anything to the thrower until they fake and then look at him. And then he's just kind of stopping, hoping that the thrower is going to figure out where they need to put the disc so that it doesn't get defended and where the space is. He does it again here, even though Rag poaches off. So if he'd used Rag's poaching off as the cue to actually put a hand out, indicate to the thrower where they want the disc, then it's less likely that this would be in a turnover. By waiting for the fake, it means the thrower doesn't have any time to see what he's going to do, and that's why they both make the decision at the same time as where they're going to put the disc, and those decisions don't match up, which is a miscommunication. As well as reacting a bit quicker to the poach happening and not waiting for their cue from the thrower, McNamara could look for the return pass on this continuation to the far side. If both players here were looking for the return pass, then it'd be difficult for Rag to do any poaching or to stop McNamara from getting the disc back. Credit here also has to go to Rag. His poach stops the next downfield option, and then his quick adjustment and tightening up on McNamara at a crucial time contributes to the turnover. Clapham pick the disc up and get it moving nice and quickly. Swan Thompson is being marked by Rogers, and Rogers bites in on the force to stop inside throw, giving him an out. Mikhail faces infield, pivots infield, and throws a nice high release up line. Swan Thompson does well to go against his momentum and pivot infield. He slips a little bit but regains, and without pivoting, pops a sweet scuba down the line to McHale. Clapham then attack the front corner one after the other, before Feely is caught face marking too hard, and Connor's able to pop the disc past him.
Clapham, once they got the turn, through only break throws, and a lot of them were between Thompson and Mikhail. Mikhail, of course, you might see sporting a little bit of a patch next to his eye. He is not a part-time pirate.
Clapham arrive with two players marking the central handler. There's a free player on the far side, and then a completely free huck, which doesn't make the distance. There's confusion between Wilson and Funk when they arrive. Both of them get beaten. Wilson gets beaten deep, Funk gets beaten under. Wilson has a nice burst of speed to catch this huck, but really it should have been way out in front of the receiver. Elsewhere on the field, Ranelagh set up a side stack. Orcock is just marking tight 1-to-1. Conor McHale tries to poach and work together using team defense, but Orcock isn't interested, doesn't see him, almost runs into him when the disc goes up. If he had been up for doing team defense with McHale, then between them they could have covered all the options for this side stack. So these are two potentially fatal defensive mistakes from Clapham in the first 5 seconds of this point, but they end up with the disc in their hands anyway, just thanks to the underthrown flick. Off the turnover, Orcock gets into a great position. He's got separation on his mark moving forward, and he decides to go deep, which is kind of putting all your eggs in one basket with this separation. If Orcock had decided to bounce the disc off Funk and get it back in his hands immediately, then he still would have had separation from his defender, and he would have had lots of other players around him who he could have then continued working with, keeping that separation and really cashing in on the advantage that it's given him, rather than going deep and it's either a good throw for a score or nothing. Mariano should really be keeping his defender busy and coming under to the sideline space here, but Clapham just worked the disc around the back. Mikhail has a nice half pivot inside break, which sets up Wilson and eats up some yards. Then he throws this low around flick through a small gap to hit Funk and set him up. Another half pivot inside break, this time to Funk. This clip of ankles causes an incomplete pass and the disc gets sent back. McHale gets the disc back in his hands and throws a bladey around flick to Funk for the goal. All 5 of McHale's touches during this point gave Clapham considerable advantages as he gets the disc moving, gets himself moving, and breaks the force both inside and around. Ranelagh come out with a vertical stack in the third point, which should play to Clapham's team defence perfectly, but they managed to get a throw out early. It should be perfect for Clapham because they come down, spread out downfield, and then pick up their marks, so they're already basically surrounding that stack. But frustratingly, Rag just points at Rogers rather than actually marking him, and so Rogers is able to get a big swing out to the side, which kind of messes up Clapham's defence a bit. They really had an opportunity there to clamp down right from the beginning, stop that first pass and cover all the other options. Eels is putting lots of pressure on McCurry, who has to save this dump pass, but Ranelagh's offense doesn't last very long as there's a throw behind McCurry, who Eels is pressuring. McCurry kind of bends his cut a little bit, but it's another turnover for Ranelagh. Rag gets a bit disconnected when he's got the disc in his hands. Charlie Butt comes back and Rag gets off a inside flick. Charlie looks for the return pass, goes up line, clears some space. Orcock cuts across from the front of the stack, but he's going too wide and doesn't adjust, doesn't attack the disc. You can see the angle that Orcock takes here, invites the defender to come in underneath, and instead of attacking the disc, he slows down slightly. It's a great D by Murphy nonetheless.
Rag goes down the line, he's looking for Orcock. Huge layout block by Samuel Murphy. That man has been talismanic for Ranelagh.
Ranelagh pick the disc up and get it moving. It's clear that Clapham aren't playing any team defence at the moment, as a cut from the very back of the stack comes through everybody, and instead of it being picked up and negated, it ends up being a pick. Out of the stoppage, Rogers runs a 1-2-3 move with McFeely, like a give-go-get. McFeely ends up with the disc in a really nice power position. The huck's on, but there's a poach coming across. It's not enough to stop Bogan Carey bringing it down, though. If we look at the move in the backfield again, Rogers goes for the return pass. McFeely throws it quickly, and at this point has got his shoulders in front of Hillman. So instead of actually just running straight through with the cut, he delays it, knowing that Hillman won't be able to get past him. And that gives Rogers a little bit more time, so that then this throw is crisper, and the huck goes up, but Cragg is there. Let's see where Cragg came from. So Orcock's mark goes deep. He connects with Cragg quite quickly. Cragg sees it and is in a really good position for this poach. Really, Ranelagh are kind of lucky to have gotten away with throwing into coverage.
He recognises Bogan Carey going deep.
And just no fear with that throw.
No hesitation.
Ranelagh's pull is fantastic, and the hang time means that Briggs has to cut towards the middle back of his own end zone to receive the first pass. It looks like Ranelagh are forcing middle. Justin gets the disc underneath, and then rips a backhand huck cross field, taking advantage of that middle force, out to the space in front of Wilson, who then is able to pop it to Yo for the goal. Ranelagh's offense turns over on the second pass. There's a bit of hesitation, even though the target is free and the disc goes behind them for the turn. Clapham get the disc moving nice and quickly. Every time that McHale touches the disc is influential again. First he leads Swan Thompson onto the break side with a nicely shaped scuba. Then he gets an upline and reverses the flow with an around flick break, which ultimately sets up Funk to throw the assist to Swan Thompson for the goal.
And Conor McHale is just throwing out these breaks that are making his Clapham D-line offense nearly impossible to stop.
Ranelagh come out with a vert stack again, giving Clapham a chance to shut down their first options with team defence, but Modiano doesn't realise that Charlie Butt is behind him and almost runs into him. This causes double coverage at the back, and there's a free player on the near sideline who isn't hit in the end. There's a little bit of confusion at the back with Ranelagh because Rogers can see that free player and tries to communicate to Murphy to hit it, but instead of looking, Murphy's already seen that a return pass would mean an open continuation, so he goes for that instead. Feely gets the disc on the far side, fakes a flick and then throws the flick, which results in a turnover. This is something that we talked about in last year's final. When you throw the same throw that you've just faked, it increases the chance of a turnover. In this instance, Charlie Butt's there to mop it up. Let's have a look at where he came from. So Charlie and Hillman identify the opportunity for a switch or a bracket nice and early. They communicate and get on the same page, but Charlie sees the disc moving over to the far side, so his instinct draws him to the underspace on that side. He sees that it's open. As he's going, the cut starts, but Charlie doesn't really want to leave that deep space unless he's sure Hillman's got it covered, so he stutters, but it's enough to kind of throw the tempo off for Ranelagh and get the turnover. You can see that Hillman's reactions are pretty good for this situation. He sees that Charlie is starting to commit in, and quite quickly he then commits to covering the deep instead. It wasn't perfect, but it was fast enough that it caused enough problems that resulted in a turnover. Hillman throws a nice inside break to Modiano up the line, and Clapham work the disc around patiently until Eels throws this upline turnover. If we look again, we can see when Eels catches the disc, he could choose to turn inwards or outwards. He turns outwards but whips his head around, so ends up facing 90 degrees away from the way that he was facing when he caught it. So instead of turning 90 degrees to the right, he turned 270 degrees to the left. This momentarily breaks the connection between them and takes away Eels' field vision. In the end, Murphy reads the play really well, and there's no angle that Modiano can take, which gets the disc before the poach D. Clapham's defence is then in complete shambles. Hillman is kind of poaching underneath. Looks like he's playing team defence, but I think he's just marking one player, and he has no help from any of his teammates. That player ends up free, but it's a pick. If we look again, it's super weird. He's maintaining that tether with this player who cuts towards him for some reason, and that there's two other pairs of players who are marking one-to-one between Hillman and his mark. It's just nuts. None of them seem to be aware of each other, and in the end there's a pick which lets them off the hook. Out of the stoppage, Ranelagh hit a couple of resets, keep the disc moving. Hillman poaches off again, but still doesn't have any help deep. He almost switches with Eels here, but it ends up being blown coverage. Eels gets beaten deep as well, maybe because of that confusion. And some good boxing out by McNamara here, taking the hit and making the catch. Eels initially calls foul, but McNamara stays calm and explains what happens. Eels rightly retracts the call, and it's 4-2 Clapham.
McNamara there with a huge play. I mean, I guess when I saw that throw come off, I was like, oh, this is not what you want to do to force it, that matchup. But I think you see the height difference there between McNamara and Eels, and it actually is the right shot.
In the next point, Ranelagh come down with a 2-3-2 zone. Clapham look quite comfortable moving the disc around, and when they get it on the far sideline, they have quite nice shape, which opens up opportunity for Long to get a pass in space in the backfield here. Now him and Abrams work together, but Abrams passes into the space downfield and he gets picked off by a defender. The offense was looking really promising for a second here, but Long and Abrams end up just kind of going too close to each other. They could have moved away from those defenders, maybe cross paths and used the space down at the bottom of the screen. where they would have had Mead and Ford in support to continue building this attack. In the end, there's a slight miscommunication as Yo has spotted some space deep, whilst Abrams has spotted the under space. They both kind of make the decision at the same time, and Fletcher's good awareness means that he can punish them for it.
Through here, you see the dribble move. Just a little too quick on that one, as Liam Fletcher just poaches in for the block.
Against Ranelagh's offense, Mead is poaching downfield to stop those throws through the middle. He bites on this around backhand fake to stop it, which forces the inside throw, and it's slightly behind the receiver again. If we look again, when the receiver sees that backhand, they doubt that the throw is going to come and they slow up, which opens the door for Ford to come through with the catch block. Clapham immediately move the disc downfield. It's all flowing really nicely. Everyone wants the disc in their hands. They're not just clearing out blindly and resetting their offense. It flows so nicely, in fact, that they completely lose track of where they are on the field. Wally Gordon toes in there to a corner which is actually in the middle of the end zone. Ashley Yo gets the disc back, and the players have all set up really accurately. Credit to them. No one's there to stop the pass because they weren't in the first place. 5-2 Clapham. In this point, Ranelagh give their 2-3-2 zone another try, pressing high and forcing Clapham backwards off the sideline. Briggs blades the disc over to Abrams, who spots Yo in the middle, slots it through to him. Quick pass to Justin Ford, but doesn't look for the return pass. They're not able to continue building that attack. Which is a shame, because if Yo got the 1-2 here, then he would be in a good position to actually open up the far side and hit Mead. But as it is, Clapham keep moving the disc around. There's a point here where Horry gets the disc up line. His momentum takes him out of the field and he rejoins it. Justin knows that something's wrong with that. And I think, in fact, Swan Thompson calls travel on his team from the sideline. Again, the setup of the defenders after the stoppage is notably accurate, but Clapham have lost their forward momentum, so they go back to moving the disc around the back. Nice shape from Clapham again on the sideline. Opens up the throw to Horry in the middle, who swings it across with a half pivot. And Ford hits a no pivot backhand to Abrams at the back of the end zone. If we look again, as the disc moves, Ash is looking to get it into the middle, and this draws a defender over. Once that happens, then they can overload them on the near side and go 6-3 up. In the next part, I'll be looking at how the Irish claw their way back from being 3 points down to bringing the scores level before half-time. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again soon.
That's just fantastic play by Yo, creating the space with his movement. Next level cutting is when you create space for other people to attack. They did start to solve it. The longer they played against that zone, the more comfortable they appeared to get. And watch this, they suck it in. So Ashley Yo attacks the front corner, brings McNulty across and sucks Pierce out of the wing position, opening up a back corner shot to Abrams.